Hello, good afternoon. Um, Welcome to today's seminar on creative technology. The topic today will be AI in music and performance. And I'll be your host today. My name is Sebastian Schlecht. I'm a professor of practice for sound in virtual reality here at Aalto at the acoustic labs at the Media Lab. We'll have two great speakers today, Roberto Bresin and Vesa Välimäki. They first give each their talk around 20 to 30 minutes, and then we'll have a discussion round afterwards. So if you have questions after for these our speakers, I'll ask you to hold on to them until the discussion round. We'll have plenty of time to discuss those further. So then I have the pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Roberto Bresin. Is a professor of media technology at the Division of Media Technology and Interaction Design, MID, at the School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at KTH in Sweden. And since 2019, he has been the director of NAVET and KTH Center for Research in the intersection of art, technology, and design. And this is an initiative which also includes the School of Arts there in Stockholm, and also museums are included in this center. And his main research interests are in expressive music performance, emotion in sound and music performance, sound in interaction, robot sound design, and sonification. And I'm sure we'll hear more details about this in a minute, so I'll welcome Roberto to the stage. Please give him a round of applause.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. So, thank you for inviting me here to make this presentation, and really happy to be here and that Vesa actually called me here. So, this talk is about sound and music as source of innovation. Basically, I will base my presentation about how we do basic research in sound and music, and how this can be, the results of basic research can be applied for doing something innovative. So this is the outline of my talk. So I will start from two areas of basic research that I'm doing, where I'm doing research, and then I will show you a few projects that are listed here. We will see them together. So, but this is was not possible if I don't have a research group, but these are some of my colleagues at the moment at KTH, and so on the upper line are guest researcher or professors and postdocs, and in the second line are all PhD students that we have. And as you see, we have also logos of different partners with which we collaborate a lot, as Sebastian also was mentioning. So there are College of Music, the Stockholm University of the Arts, that includes dance, circus, opera, film, going back, and arts and crafts, and two museums, big museums in Stockholm. So I will start with the first basic research area that we have been working with, and it's called communicating expression in music performance. And actually, this is a research who started already in the 70s at KTH, by Professor Johan Sundberg. He is now an emeritus in our department. And the idea was, how is it possible to communicate expression with a music performance? What happens in a music performance? And here you see three curves representing three performances of three very famous pianists of the same piece of music. What you see, you have this spike at some point towards the end of these graphs, that represent the end of a phrase. So all of them are doing this, emphasizing the end of a phrase. The curve that you see are like speed curves. So if the curve is going to negative, it means they are playing an accelerando. When it's going to positive, they are playing a rallentando. So what you see is phrasing. If they wouldn't do that, it would sound like this. So very mechanical on time, no expression at all. And this, what I play now, is a recording by Brendel of the same piece. This is Schumann Träumerei, the start of Schumann Träumerei. So you get an idea. You see, you hear all the deviations. So by looking at the not only this performance, many performances, we build an expert system of rules, about 30 rules, that can be applied to any piece of music and to be played, rendered with expression. And we went on with this. Yes. Some years ago, we did a big study where we developed a system where people could manipulate in real time a piece of music and for communicating a specific emotion. And we did this because we wanted to identify what is the ranges of different acoustical cues. So how fast should be a happy performance be played in order to be perceived as played or as sad, and what is the sound level, what is the articulation, how you play the phrases, and so on and so forth. So we did this, and we found a very strong agreement between 20 participants, professional musicians, and I play you now an iconic performance. First, the original score without any deviations as it is on the score. Then I will play you the beginning of a sad version of the same piece and then a happy version of the same piece, where we made an average value of all the parameters over the 20 people who did the test with us. So this was the piece, was composed as happy by a composer in Canada for other kind of experiments, and was judged by structurally happy composition by listeners. So we applied then parameters from our system automatically, so to play as sad. I stop here because otherwise you get sad, all of you, and then you get the happy version. It's 5 times faster. So you can read this paper that is cited here, but among other things, we have some design guideline how you should design a piece of music, the cues, in order to communicate a specific emotion. So happy is almost 5 times faster than sad, for instance, and neutral is 3 times faster than sad, and so on and so forth. And so this was first basic research area. The other basic research area where we look into is data sonification, and here you get the current 3 definitions of accepted data sonification. The first one is the simplest one, and it says it all, by Bill Buxton. Bill Buxton is a designer who coined actually the first definition that you can see here: the use of sound for data representation as the counterpart of data visualization in the auditory domain. Okay, and one of the first examples of data sonification that people usually play in order to illustrate to listeners that don't know what it is the Geiger counter. Okay, so we use sound to indicate measurements of radiations. It sounds like this. So the more the clicks, the more the radiations. And if you think of the parking car sound when you park, you have this beep, 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 becoming more frequent. The closer you arrive, you are to an object or an obstacle. It's the same kind of metaphor is being used here. Sonification is a highly multidisciplinary area of research. As you can see here, you have everything from computer science to psychology, perception, um, design, sound synthesis. It's really a huge area of multidisciplinarity, but this is why it's interesting to work with it. But it's also quite young, so there is a lot of noise, so to speak, in this area. So some years ago, we did a study where meta review where we look at 179 studies to see how people map physical parameters to acoustical parameters. And this comes from our research in music performance, because when you do music performance, in order to play a musical instrument, for instance, you have to use the physics of your body, so movements of your body, but are transformed into energy, into sound, into acoustical cues. And the different way you move your body, you will get different sounds properties from your musical instrument. And then we found also that when we walk or knock on a door or run, the time patterns and the sound that we make with our body, how we manipulate it, they have acoustical characteristics that deviates in the same way as expressive music performance. So there is a tightly connection between body motion and expression in sound. So we looked what did researchers in 179 studies did, how did they map acceleration, pressure, size, and so on to acoustics, and we define a sort of design matrix here. If you are interested, you can have a look at it. That is a sort of starting point when you can want to design a sonification, not to reinvent the wheel each time. So, one of the first studies we did then was sonification about this body motion and so on. We use sonification for running. How many of you are running, jogging? Several of you. So some people are listening to music. We're running to setting the pace, for instance, and we were thinking we can use music to correct the body posture instead. So we collaborated with physiologists of sport in the National Center for Sport Physiology in Sweden. And we made some experiments, and so we decided that the best way to give a feedback to a runner about the body posture was to modify the music the runner is listening while running. And so we use different mappings, but to make it short for you, so if you're doing something wrong in the upper part of the body, like tilting too much or too little, then we cut off the high frequencies. If you're doing something wrong in the lower part of your body, for instance, too long steps or too short steps, then we cut off the bass. Basically, if you are jumping too much, then we added a boing sound, okay? Because when you run, you don't have to jump, you have to move in this direction. So, just an example here. So high frequency are away now. And so on for the other. You can watch it online if you're interested. It's on YouTube, this video. So it's really real-time feedback. And we did it with the Kinect. We did also with the mobile phone on your back. So, and since it's your music that you're listening, you know something's wrong and you know what it is because it's in real time. Another big study within sonification was to see how sound characteristics can change the way we move in a space. And so it's about movement and sound again. And here we have children from kindergarten, 5 years old children. They are moving in a motion capture system. You see that the girl in pink, which is actually my daughter 9 years ago, she has a marker. So each of the children are tracked with a motion capture system in a 5 meters room with 8-channel audio. So when they move, they hear the sound that they generate with their movements following each of them. So here you see 4 children, there are 4 soundtracks. And what we did, behind the curtains, we changed the sound model that they were activating. So it happened if a child was standing still, no sound. As soon as they moved, they were like, shh, shh. So the speed was controlling the sound models. And we had different sound models. You get an example here, what's happening. So this switch sound is generated by them, basically, and they are running. They're running in space in circles. We look at this, and we saw that when we have this sound that you heard, that is called fluid sound, they were moving in circles, like in the left picture here, and these are the heat maps of 4 children. Each color is 1 child, and to the right, you see what happened when we change the sound. We use some rigid sound or jerky sound, how we call it. I can play it very quickly through the first one. This is what happened. So what happened? They go in circles. Okay, they use all the space of the room. And then I play the S3, the rigid sound. That was generated by them while moving. They were moving like this. Okay, and what you see, they start to move around themselves or sometimes bumping into each other, but they are not using the whole space. They are completely more jerky kind of movements. The heat map in the middle is for a sound that is in between. So then we recorded these sounds. We gave a CD record to the teachers of the children. The day after, they played in the kindergarten, and they asked them to draw the sounds. And here you see 1 drawings or 1 child. We had from several children, just as an example. You see the drawing to the left is for the fluid sounds, and then drawing to the extreme right for the very rigid sounds. So you see they could represent by listening with the pen, that is also a gesture, the sound quality, the waveforms that they were listening. And then we asked adults to make listening tests. They look at the 3 pictures, and they had to associate what is the sound that you associate to each of these pictures. And listeners, were 150 adults, more or less, they associate the fluid sounds to the left picture here, and the jerky, rigid sounds more to the right pictures. Okay, I think I skipped these 3 sounds very quickly, because you have heard them already. So we closed the loop. We went from movements of children to drawing of the sounds they generated to people that are associating the drawings to the sound generated by the body of the children. Continuing to body motion, some years ago we designed a garment that we call Nebula. And the idea here was to map the body movement of a person, expression, especially body movement through a garment. So the idea is that we are the best user of our clothes. So we are comfortable in wearing our garments, so we can use our garments also as an expressive tool. This was the concept that we had. So we designed this tool, but you see some pictures here. Basically, there are studs, metal studs connected through copper thread behind in different areas. We have different clouds of studs, and this connect to a sensor that Wi-Fi is sending each time you are activating the studs. Basically, if I have studs here, and I put them in contact, I establish a contact between 2 body parts. And we calculate to the left, there's some graphs here. This is the energy of your body, how much you are activating different areas of your body, and we can control the sound in real time. I show you an example. So we know the center of balance of your body, how much energy you're using here or here and so on. And this, in the second generation, also the garment you will see now, we use also with a musician. She's a professor of flute in the Conservatory of Music in Venice, and she's one of the top flutists in Europe for contemporary music. She improvised with her ottavino and also used the mantle for controlling sound generation. When she stops moving, there will not be sound. That is one of the things. No energy, no sound. So the sound we're generating in real time through Super Collider. This is another project where it's a more complex one. It's a permanent installation that we have at the Swedish Museum Performing Arts in Stockholm. If you come to Stockholm, you are welcome to visit it. We have this since 2017. It's a permanent installation where we are updating with new features all the time. So it's a digital musical instrument. And here in this, I make a very short, long story very short, we implemented all the principles that makes an acoustical musical instrument successful. If you think of violins, grand pianos, they have been there for centuries, basically with no modifications. So they are very effective design of sound-producing objects. They have characteristics that make them successful. So we implemented all these characteristics into a digital musical instrument that doesn't need 10 years of study to be played, like the violin, but that is engaging as a violin. Okay, so here we have a vibrating floor. There is this shaker, you see, around each of these strings, there are two of these shakers, so the low frequency make the floor vibrating. So when you touch a string, the string has a fiber optic. There are sensors, so when you detect a touch, you can change the color as you want, it's programmable. And you can send back a sound then to the loudspeakers on the floor and high frequencies on the ceiling. So you are immersed in the sound and with the color of the light in the dark room, and you feel the vibration through your body. And this has been used by more than 100,000 people. And here, just from YouTube, one of the visitors, I discovered afterwards, she's a professional singer. She was just film herself and post it on the web. So. So you saw there are two mirrors on the short sides. It's a large room, and this mirror infinitely the strings because they are positioned in an asymmetric position. This is why we call it also the sound forest. It has a sensation of an immersive forest. And this is experiments with children. So we have different sounds now. So it's a musical instrument can be programmed by composers. So we have this every year, new sounds going on, and it's inclusive. So people with different abilities and disabilities can use it and enjoy it in different ways. So, and they're coming back actually because of this. Some of them every week. So, let me see. Well. One more recent also area of research is sound design for robots, and so we are applying robot. We are looking at humanoid robots, so they look like a human, so they have body parts that can move, and then the idea of for us was how we can communicate the intention expression of a robot, just sonify the movements. And to do this, we looked to movies in the first with a lot of movies. Now this is first study five movies, but we have submitted a paper now with some tens of movies, and we discovered that the robot sounds are often associated to the physical appearance of a robot, to the emotion, to use to emphasize emotions, and the speech that they use is metallic, is the centroid is very high usually. And we look at this, why? Because many of us have seen robots in movies for many, many years, and this can have influence how our perception of robots, how they should sound. So for us, it was a starting point to look at. And from that, we made a lot of other studies about sound design for robots, but one of the studies we did then was to test several sound models with a humanoid robot, is a pepper, in a simulated shopping center or restaurant, but we put it in a screen like this, larger board, in a museum of technology where we had some thousands of children during 1 week, or they have holidays, where they could choose different sounds and play them and say, I like this, I don't like this, and from that we discover different information when a sound is better in which context. I think I jump over. These are online. You can watch them. I go instead to one of the last topics of this presentation, that is actually a project where we will start from January. So probably you have thought about this yourself, but the killer application of sound is to represent things you don't see. Okay, so think of movies. If you have a scene and you hear footstep sounds, but you don't see the person, you feel, there's a person arriving. So the sound is telling you a lot of things. But we're thinking that when we use computers or mobile phones, okay, when you have hundreds of apps in your mobile phone that are doing thousands of operations all the time, consuming your battery and so on and so forth, and connecting to social media without you knowing it. So this is hidden information. We wanted to make the citizen aware of this. So we started with a very simple thing to to represent what happens in a computer when it's doing shutdown. And when a computer is doing shutdown, there are a lot of operations happening. And here you see this plot is the last 20 seconds of life of a computer. What happens? A lot of things. So, and we wanted to sonify this. We did it, and we tested with listeners to see if I play this, what it is. And people say, it's a computer dying, or it's a computer waiting for something. And when we inverted our mappings, what we did, people could not recognize if it was what it was happening. So we found the right mappings for representing a computer shutting down. I have only 3 minutes, so I cannot play you all the sounds. So, so when a computer is shutting down, I go very quickly forward here. There are write events. These are the write events that are happening. There are a lot of write events, a few write events towards the end of a shutting down. Writing means you save your data. The computer is saving automatically data. Since these are positive events, you're saving your data, then we use high pitches, typical of happy emotion. You hear some pitches now. I jump to the next one. Then we have kill events. Kill event, you are killing a process, is a negative event, so it's low pitched. Okay, this is a few one, you will hear more at the end. And then we have exit events. Exit events are also positive, but not as positive as saving, so they are in the middle range of frequencies. Still much higher pitches than the 40 hertz of the killing one. Okay. Then we put this all together. If we put all together, We have the write in the kill, the exit, and then a contour of many events in the windows, a time window. It sounds like this. Okay, it's dead. So we use different, also some other representation, sonic representation of the same events, but I play you first how it sounds in idle mode with the same data mapping. Idle mode is when the computer is waiting for something. What you can hear here is like I say that is the computer breathing. There is a rhythmicity that you hear, but you cannot see in the data, but you hear it. It's waiting for something. And the second I play you the shutdown with using sample sounds from Petzold, that is a huge recorder flute. So we use multiphonics and slap sounds to represent also different characteristics of the events that you have seen before. Lastly, I want to show you some results of sonification that we did through the center that was presented before, this Navet center. So we decided to communicate science data through the arts. We had this idea of helping people to understand, to interiorize climate change data using sound and dance. So what we did, we were taking engaging composers of the Royal College of Music and also one composer from KTH and teaching them about what sonification is. And we had experts then also from KTH in climate change explaining how the climate change data are working with the databases, how they are constructed and what they communicate. And so the composer starts to compose sonification of this data, and then the same classes we did for the dancers of the School of Dance, part of the Stockholm University of the Arts. And together, the composer and the dancer prepare very short dances. This is one of them. I cannot play all of it. They are in YouTube, all of them, but you see there is a light on the body of one of the dancers. They both have sensors, one on the arm and the other on the foot. And this is used in the compositions, for instance, when they do synchronized movement. Then some parts of the music synchronizes, and they are voices of people that are talking about the place that they prefer in their village. And so when they are synchronized, the voices are synchronized. Means if you collaborate, you can get a better place on Earth. And then there are sonification data of temperature and so on that are mapped to different sounds. This is another composition made another composer. You can see the data here, what it's representing. And here, actually the composer about mapping the melting ices and the rising of sea level to pitch, she also used the data as a score, just playing back the data as a score. This performance is done in the first nuclear reactor in Sweden, which is in the KTH campus, but now is a performance space. Yeah, last slides. It's about installation that are running now. Sorry, in Stockholm. In Stockholm, there is every year Nobel Week lights during the Nobel Week, where there are different light installations in the city center. This year, we realized for the first time 3 sound and light installation, and each installation is associated to a Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize which we associate is for 2017 is a Nobel Prize in Medicine, where they explain the physiological behavior of our body influenced by the daylight, the circadian rhythms. So this what you see to the left, the right, the red color, it's around the area around the Museum of Performing Arts, where we had the installation, the Sound Forest. Outside, we made 3 big sound and light installation, and you see the people crew that we involved, a lot of people. They are running now. So these 2 pictures to the that you see are taken 2 days ago. You are invited if you have time. It's there until Sunday. And this was my last slide. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Roberto. Also, thank you very much for showing some many sound examples. I think that's always very crucial for these type of research presentations. So I will now introduce our second speaker. And oh yeah, by the way, so if you have questions for Roberto, please hold on to them. We'll have, and after the next talk, we'll have then some time to discuss those. So our second speaker is Professor Vesa Välimäki. He's a professor of audio signal processing here at Aalto University. He's in the School of Electrical Engineering and there at the Acoustic Labs. And he's also the Vice Dean for Research. And Vesa studies already for many years different audio signal processing techniques for music and sound processing, and in recent years he has a focus on deep learning in music and audio processing. So today we'll hear more about his pioneering research in modeling analog music technology, for example, guitar amplifiers, and also some new methods on restoration of music recordings. So please welcome Vesa Välimäki to the stage.
Okay, thank you, Sebastian. Hello, everybody. So I am Vesa Välimäki. I'm professor of audio signal processing, and I will tell you about my team's recent work on deep learning for audio and music technology research. And in this work, I have some contribution from my doctoral students, Alec Wright and Eloy Moliner, and a former student, Eero-Pekka Damscheg. So I have 2 topics, basically. I will talk about deep learning for guitar amplifier modeling, and then show an example of denoising of old music recordings. So guitar amplifiers, as you know, are these big boxes that amplify the sound of the guitar. They also make a difference to the sound. They make distortion, and when we model them, we also have to realize that they also slightly have memory, so they don't use only the current moment of the input signal, but they remember a little bit what happened in the past, and this all makes it a little bit complicated to simulate with a computer. And there's basically 2 options how you could do this if you want to model the guitar amp in real time with the computer and with excellent sound quality. One of these is called white box modeling, and this is basically the idea of opening the guitar amp, looking inside and analyzing what kind of electronic circuit is used, and do some kind of circuit simulation with a computer of that. And actually this was also something that we started here at or in Otaniemi, at former Technical University. My former supervising professor Matti Karjalainen and one of my students, Juri Pakarinen, did this like in 2006 for the first time. This is also one possible way to go forward. It just turns out that you would have to simulate every box separately, which is time consuming and kind of laborious. So for this reason, nowadays we feel that it is more exciting to use this second option, which is called black box modeling. Black box, of course, means that you don't look inside, you don't know what exactly it is, and you make a model that is kind of one size fits all type of thing. So you train the same model for any guitar amplifier, just basically looking at what goes in and what comes out of the amplifier box. And this is a research line that was started 10 years ago, but in recent years my students kind of made some excellent progress in this field and kind of, I think, cracked the problem. So now we know quite well how to do this, and I'll show you how. So to use a neural network to model a guitar amplifier, you basically train target audio signal through the amplifier, but also you need the signal that comes or goes into the amplifier. So you both the dry signal before it goes to the amp and the same signal after it comes back or through the amplifier. And you have to synchronize this very well and show them to the neural network. And that is how you train it. So you train it basically to understand the relation between the input and output. One interesting aspect here is that you actually don't necessarily need the box itself nowadays, but you can also use a circuit model, which is an interesting idea that you can mix these white and black box models nowadays. So you can actually produce the training data with the circuit model, which is a kind of model that you might not be able to run in real time in a computer, however, but you can still use it to save time, because these actual measurements with devices take a lot of time and effort actually. So here's some more detail how the training works. So the training data, which has now your clean audio and these distorted audio signals, you send the clean audio to the neural network and it predicts some output, network prediction output. First it goes all wrong, it doesn't sound at all like the guitar amp, but you compare the target output and this predicted output and you use so-called loss function, which determines how well or how badly the output corresponds to the target, and then you change the neural network based on this. And this is the idea of backpropagation. The backpropagation algorithm is a famous algorithm used for training all sorts of neural networks in this kind of that use this kind of supervised learning principle. So you actually know which way the things go wrong, and you change the parameters so that next time it would be better. And you repeat this many times, and finally it will sound pretty good. And the neural network has then become, in practice, the amplifier, at least when it comes to the sound, its sound processing capabilities. So we first did this back in 2019 in a paper, and in this paper we used a feed-forward neural network where we have the input signal, which is the guitar sound, and then we used some called conditioning, which are user control. So these are the like tone controls and other gain buttons and knobs and things that you have in the guitar amplifier. So we can also train the settings, how it sounds at this moment. And then if you change the setting, the neural network would also learn how to change the behavior based on this knob position, although there are really no knobs in the neural network itself. And even this early model, here we compare in blue the reference distorted waveform and the red one the output of the neural network, and we can see that at least visually the correspondence is very close. Actually in detail it's not as close as you might think, because little details, especially high frequencies, don't show very well in the waveform. But anyway, it was pretty convincing, so many things already went right. We also use this kind of sound like listening tests, where we ask people to create the quality of the sound from bad to excellent. They compare with the training, like with the target data, and we have different techniques here, and the reference actually is the original sound itself. So they compare the original with the original, and they say that, okay, it's very close. But now these WaveNet 1 and WaveNet 2 models also were pretty good in the range good in this kind of diagram. So you could notice the difference between the neural network model, but it wasn't horrible. Some of the earlier models and the so-called anchor model that we use are not good. They are, and the anchor particularly is supposed to be bad, so it just gives you the kind of range of quality scores. Then later we started using so-called recurrent neural networks. So recurrent neural network is a deep neural network that has feedback. So it kind of remembers something that it has done before or what has come in before, while those previous feed-forward networks just take the signal and it flows through the network and there's no sign of it after that. But these remember something, and this helps with the memory of the amplifier, because it somehow remembers a little bit what happened just a moment ago. So this network has so-called states, and these are the memory of the network, and these are updated each time step when we use something or give some input to the network. And we tested with two different types of units, so-called recurrent units, which are called gated recurrent units and short-term memory units. And these are some standard techniques used in deep neural networks, also in other topics, but we found that some of these can also be quite well used for guitar signals and musical signals. And here's how the recurrent neural network works and learns things. So we split the data into very short segments, which we run through the network, and we show the input and output or the target, and then the neural network computes its outputs, and we again use the loss function, and we then change the parameters and also the states now. And this is done every maybe 1,000 samples of audio, which is just a fraction of a second. And we tried different numbers of units, and more usually is better, at least quality-wise. But of course, we were looking for sufficient quality, so sufficient number of units that gives excellent, or at least very good quality. One big question was in the beginning, like 5 years ago, how much training data would you need for something like this? We knew from image processing and from speech recognition that deep neural networks use huge numbers of data. They're very hungry, and it takes maybe weeks or months to train the neural network. But we were happy with the price, because it turns out in 3 minutes, or with 3 minutes of guitar playing, basically, you can train the neural network to become that amplifier that was used. That's much less than thought, because we thought maybe days or weeks, probably not months, but maybe days or weeks. But no, you didn't have to need hundreds or thousands of hours of music, just a few minutes. And indeed, we can see that from this curve that even a minute or even 30 seconds is already really close to where it goes, because the error saturates at that one certain level. So this was a nice breakthrough, and it showed us that actually it's not as hard for a neural network to model guitar amplifiers as you might think. It's not too hard, actually. And deep neural networks are well suited to this problem. And here's some results. So we can see that these are like some different neural networks, and compared with how they model two different guitar amps, HT5M and a Mesa Boogie amplifier. And we can see that even these the best models, which are highlighted with bold 0.2%, it only takes like 2.5 times real time on an Apple iMac to compute in real time. So you could basically run 2 of these cabinets and even half of a third one in real time. That was a few years ago. So this means that it's not only good, but it's also like possible to run it in a practical computer. And also now we found that the difference between this model and the actual sound is really small. And I find that this one result that we got, where people now couldn't anymore notice the difference between these neural network processed sounds of guitars and the actual recordings. And I find that this is now the beginning of the neural processing, audio processing era, kind of a new era in technology in our field. So the previous one was like a digital audio era, which started when the CD player and digital synthesizers were introduced in the or in the mid 80s, let's say. So we entered a new era. And here's a few sound examples. The target sound played through a Mesa Boogie amp. So that was the original, and here's what the neural network does. Okay, there was just a slight loudness difference, but basically I can tell you that usually people would not notice a difference because they confuse the fake one with the real one. So this is truly deep fake guitar distortion. We also made a press release out of this, and it was shown all over the world in the news when we did this, and and that's Alec with his guitar in the anechoic chamber playing through a small amp, but truly he was using the neural network. And we also got to Helsingin Sanomat, which at least in Finland is a nice thing always. All right, but then next I will talk about another topic. So denoising of old music recordings. This is also something we have done with neural networks recently. So old recordings done on gramophone record, for example, as you see here in the colorful picture. The sound quality of these music recordings is pretty awful these days. We are used to hearing much nicer and cleaner sound than that. What we now do is a slightly different idea. We use a frequency domain processing of the sound. So we do compute the spectrogram, which is kind of a time-varying spectrum of the sound, and then it becomes comparable to image processing. So the computer, we actually see these colorful kind of paintings of the sound, the noisy version and also the clean version in that kind of picture. And that's why we can use kind of image processing techniques to process the sound. Finally, we convert it back to audible sound in the time domain. So we used this supervised learning technique again, but now we used actually real noises that we capture from gramophone recordings, but then modern classical music or jazz music to train it actually. So we mixed those real gramophone noises, but modern clean music. And now we needed about 40 hours of classical music and 2 hours of these noise segments. So not too much after all, not too much material. And this was presented just last year in a conference. And I'll show you now how the training was done. We used a structure which has 2 unit structures, which kind of compress the dimensionality of sound and then expand it again. And it's using two stages because one stage was not enough for us. And here's an example. So on the left, you see the spectrogram of an old recording from 1913, which was it's like a very noisy recording. You can see in the color bar that there's lots of energy everywhere in the picture. And on the right-hand side, you see a restored version where you see some kind of black sky, which means that it's empty, so there's nothing, for example. So the noise is gone. And so it was. This now is not like a simulated case. This is a real case, so it's not a fake like a mixture of noises with modern music, but this is true old recording. And interestingly, we can actually remove all the noises at one go, so all the clicks and hisses. And next, I'll play. These are also available online, by the way, if you want to go and check these. But let's hear first the recording from 1913. This is Enrico Caruso, very famous singer. But you also hear why he's not very famous nowadays, because all his recordings pretty much sound like that. So it's pretty horrible. The noise and clicks are terrible. But this is the restored version from last year. So you hear the music is there, the noise is gone, and there are no artifacts, which is the great thing, because in the past, usually when we do this, like a very nice and clean version, you usually get some artifacts which we call birdies, some whistling sounds and things, but this didn't do it. Finally, we can subtract the 2 recordings from each other and see if there was anything extra taken away, because in the subtracted residual, you would usually hear some of the original music, but let's see what happens this time. So this was the noise from the first recording from over 100 years ago. Did you recognize the song? Probably not, because there is no music, I think, in that. And this means that it's a clean, so the neural network learned to separate music and those old noises cleanly, and now we could only hear each of them separately. And basically this gives an opportunity to, for example, release old music once again to new audiences. Okay, and now time to conclude. So basically I was telling you about research we are doing in my audio signal processing research group at the Aalto Acoustics Lab. So we are using neural networks and deep learning for audio research. One idea is to use this end-to-end modeling of audio processing, for example, to model guitar amplifiers, also other effects like effects pedals that guitarists are using. We also use it for audio enhancement, such as denoising of old historical music recordings that you heard before. And I can tell that in each case, these deep neural networks have exceeded our expectations, but always been much better than we could dream of. And so this is what basically makes us want to go on and find new applications for deep learning in audio research. That's all I had. Here's a few references from our recent research. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vesa. So we'll have a quick break to set the stage for the discussion, and then we'll have some time for the discussion. Also for the viewers online, so there will be kind of a short break in the transmission where you see kind of mostly the background picture, but we'll be back in a minute. So just don't turn off the screen yet. See you in a minute. Yeah. Okay. So welcome back. Thank you very much for these two very exciting talks. So now we'll have some time to have a more free-form discussion about these topics on AI and music and performance. And if you want to ask questions, please stand up. That's also for the cameras important. But I'll take the liberty maybe to start with a question first. So, Vesa, you just announced kind of the neural audio processing era, and of course you were also active kind of before in the digital signal processing kind of revolution. And I was wondering, many of these techniques, really, these deep learning techniques, they really give us completely new level of quality, right? So this is certainly promising. What I'm wondering is how much does it also affect kind of the research process? So do you feel like there's much change from working with digital signal processing techniques more in a traditional way now with data-driven techniques?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes, I think it has changed a bit, yes. So I guess we used to use more kind of ad hoc solutions when we used filters and other like kind of traditional signal processing techniques. You would have an idea that, oh, this might work, let's try this. But now, of course, when we use machine learning, we basically let the computer try, and so we can also again try something, but we can still tweak, kind of help the system, maybe with modifying the loss function or something else, some so-called hyperparameters, and maybe find how it works. But much of the testing is done by computers nowadays, and I think that has changed. But of course, there's still many things that are the same. So not everything has changed, I think. And signal processing is not going away or has not gone away. Let's say there is this saying that if you know what to do, don't try to train it or train a network to do it. So this is what we still do. So for things we know, we do the best. We use the best techniques still. And then for things that are hard, that we don't know how to do with traditional techniques, there it's a good idea to use machine learning nowadays.
Roberto, how is this for you? I think in the for example, I'm thinking of the sonification process. I can imagine there's both a blend of using expert systems versus also kind of handcrafted choices. How did your process kind of change there in the last few years?
Not much, I would say. It depends. So when you see the things where we do with the artists, so then we work with humans. So and there is we don't use much of artificial intelligence there because we are interacting with human beings, or we get human beings answers. So it's more I would call it like a sort of analog word, so no machine learning. But of course, the system what we have been learning a lot using these expert systems that today are called machine learning or statistical models. So when we did these systems for play music with expression automatically, and we apply the principles of these when we interact with artists or producing new sonifications, they all start from there. They start all from how we behave with basically our body and how our body can influence the quality of sounds. I was thinking something like Vesa was showing that, for instance, for these amplifiers, that in the input you still have the values of the controllers, so you need to have very good input information and reliable information when you train systems. So the things that you have seen with the performance, when I play with this automatic performance with emotions, we have been doing this with neural networks I say more than 20 years ago. And we did the same. Basically, it's exactly the same you did with the amplifier. Instead of having the sound, we had the score and the parameters of the score. So, and the output was the performance of the musician. It was exactly the same. Yeah.
Great. Are there any questions from the audience? Sorry. I can ask one more question, and you can think about it. You were talking about this collaboration also with the artists in doing the sonification, and I was actually wondering, kind of, you're coming up with all these mapping techniques, and you're studying explicitly how this is done in practice, both for the robot sounds, for example, but also for the sonification of the physical quantities. And there is it. So I see when you do this kind of manually, I think there's kind of some intent of the creator, of the designer you're kind of bringing in, versus maybe something which is more neutral. Maybe if you're kind of bringing in, doing this through some machine learning, maybe is there a balance you see, kind of in terms of how much subjectivity you want to bring in there in the mapping?
Yeah, thank you. So sonification, you can do both, as you say, automatically, so sort of neutral, or you can give an aesthetics to it. And I believe that we need to use aesthetics to make them successfully applied, and to leave this to artists, not to engineers. This is why I collaborate with composers. And but yeah, I think you need to give a personal twist, but still you have to follow rules. So the composer is free to use his or her own aesthetics, but the mappings must be respected. So there are rules that you have to follow. And we actually verify this always when it's an application that must be used by more people, for instance, but that's not a pure, so to speak, artistic application. We verify this with listening tests, perceptual listening tests, to see that we really communicate the data and the relationships that are in the data. But of course, if you use a trumpet sound or a sound of wind or something else, it's an aesthetics choice. The important is that the relationships in the data are still there. Yeah. So there is room for choices and interpretation. Yeah.
Please.
Thank you. Hey, thanks. I think I didn't get a lot of the presentation on sonification, but I'm interested to know what is your opinion about this balance between the kind of the value of scientific value of using the data sonification and still have a foot on the aesthetics to, maybe convey the experience or something like that. So do you have a commitment between those two parts, or how do you negotiate? Between keeping the relationships and using different aesthetics. It depends what the target is. So if we want to sensitize people about climate change, okay, we start from climate change data, real databases that are available, and then we apply some mappings, but then they don't have to be exact. Exactly. The important is that the data are there and that people are moved. So that the sound, the sonifications made by artists, by composers, they communicate this urgency that is in climate change, but still starting from the real data, and then we leave some rooms for improvement because they are not control. It's not a sonification that is used for controlling, I don't know, a rocket going to the moon. We don't need to be precise in that case. If we need to use a sonification that has to give you exactly super precise data, then we have to be also precise in the sonic representation 100%. So probably there is less artistic freedom in the. You can choose this freedom in choosing the sound, but then deviations are not accepted, so to speak. Did I answer your question? Yeah?
Yeah, maybe one question also kind of following up there. So I think in both of your research you have is a human kind of recipient in the end, kind of a listener who either wants to communicate either information or emotions. And I think I can see, now with this latest wave of AI also many more possibilities to kind of somehow virtualize also this recipient, to somehow get better models of humans listening to music and so on. How do you see kind of the future there?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is one of the burning questions. Like, how do you like train a neural network in an economic way so that it makes results that are perfect or excellent for humans, for human perception, but not too well, not too good. Because we realized also quite quickly that we lost a lot of resources in the beginning by trying to microscopically imitate the waveforms of guitar amplifiers, while in reality we can't hear anything so accurately at very low frequencies and very high frequencies. We don't have to care so much. It's only the certain like frequency range where we are very good at hearing differences between sounds. So this is one thing. So we could still improve the way the error is error is evaluated in training and used to in the back propagation phase to adjust the parameters. The other thing, of course, is that we would also need to replace somehow or imitate humans in actually evaluating the output finally, because now that is done with listening tests. We bring people to this listening booth and put headphones on them, and then they answer like, is it good or very good or poor or what it is. It feels dumb that we still have to do that, although there's decades of research on kind of sound quality and everything, but we still don't have a good way to compute with a computer from a sound, like does it sound good or not. We have some ideas, but not good enough. Well, of course, one day maybe we could do this with a neural network and machine learning, but at the moment we can't. So there's work to do.
How do you think about for the sound design process? Do you see some potential there for a machine listening to and helping you with the process?
Yeah, so composers have been using computers for generating music since the first computer was invented, basically. But I think that from a sound design point of view, I mean, we can use AI tools to provide new flavors of sounds that we have, but then we have always to take them and to do something with it. It's like to create a new color with some chemistry, and then it's up to the painter how to use that color in the context of the other colors. So it's not that you just put it there. So I think the AI can be interesting for facilitating and easy some processes and to provide some extra suggestions that you don't have, but usually they come also from the training. So the suggestions come from what you have trained, fed the system, and if you are a composer, sometimes you give your own practice to train a system, and then you pick up from that. I could have done this, but it's suggested by an expert system, for instance. So, but I was thinking there are things like evaluating a sound quality can be done automatically to compare two sounds, like you did you take away the noise part, so you can compare it automatically. But there are some other things about perception of emotions or colors associated to sounds, like we do. They depend from cultural context, the culture of the listener and the education of the listener, and so on and so forth. Just an example. We did always test which color do you associate a specific piece of music with emotion. And some couple of years ago, we tested with some emotionally expressive Indian music. And the Indian listeners, they associate colors, like was a happy Indian music, was yellow, was sad, it was like a violet blue. But when we play it to Western countries listeners, they always choose orange, all of them, because they were not listening the music, you know. So it's,
yeah. This is certainly a kind of getting these cultural kind of contexts into these systems is for sure a big challenge. I think we have one more question, please.
Hi. I wanted to ask regarding this denoising part. Have you tried using that for source separation or anything similar? Because I think this, when you subtract the noisy from the denoised from noisy, it's very impressive that there is no music at all. And I know when I use some source separation software, that would often be kind of leftover music in like each component. So have you tried using that? Because it seems like it's exactly that problem. You're basically just separating the noise. So maybe separating instruments would also work.
Good point. It is truly, I think, really the same. The principle is the same, but we haven't actually worked on source separation so much because this is also something that many people and companies and researchers have been doing. And it's actually there are really great recent solutions actually. If you look closely, even this year, some pieces of software have appeared that do that really well. For example, to remove a singer from a pop song or like separate some like music instrument recordings from a pop song. That actually can be done now quite well. But yeah, you're right in that it is a similar problem. And actually we have been trying also using source separation techniques to further improve the quality of these old recordings, because one of the next things is that we would also like to improve there's high frequencies missing in these old recordings, and we are now currently doing bandwidth extension where we increase the high energy at high frequencies, kind of missing energy. But for this, it turns out that it's best to do one by one instrument. So we then need to separate the singer and some of the other instruments. So there we actually need to use source separation tools, but other research like teams and companies have been doing that. Yeah, but it's a really great and very useful problem, of course, this whole idea of source separation, where you try to, from a mixture, try to separate different instruments or different types of voices. Yeah. I guess that explains or was the answer. Yeah.
I think we have one more question.
Yes, thank you for both of your presentation. And I have a question about how do you see the potential of combining sounds and haptic interaction? What is maybe the recent trend of it, and how do you see the product design expertise in this potential or this area? Thank you.
So was that? It was about the haptic sound. What was the question exactly? I missed that beginning.
Because you talk about you also look at haptic interaction.
Yeah.
And how to combining that then.
Yeah, I mean every musical instrument has an haptic feedback. And the fact that you interact with your body, you get a feedback from the object while interacting. I mean, it is very important because it gives you information about how you are controlling it. And then also, the body of an instrument resonates with the sound. So this is why we made this haptic floor in this installation on Sound Forest. So we noticed that children, not only children, also adults with low hearing, so the decreased hearing, they were staying there because they felt the vibration through the body of the sound. And actually, when we designed that, we tested that. So the vibration is just a circle around the strings, and one of these circles is large enough to accommodate a wheelchair. We made some tests, but the vibration goes through the wheelchair into the body. So, and people that are hard of hearing, they enjoy it a lot, or they lie also with the body on the floor. So it gives an extra feedback, which is very important in music. Acoustical musical instruments is important for the musicians to be in control. And so I think in object design, I mean, when you have an object, you have always, if it is a physical object, you have the haptics in the object. But of course, if you increase with an haptic feedback, it's always good to have more modality to provide the feedback to the action of the user. It reinforces the action and keeps the user in a loop in the interaction with the object. It facilitates the interaction with the object. Yeah. I don't know if I answer. Yeah.
Maybe I can follow up here. I was also wondering about the role of haptics in musical instruments. So I'm a violin player, and that's, I think, considered a hard instrument to learn. But when I tried to learn the theremin, kind of doing these free movements in air. I really found it absolutely impossible. Although quite some principles are actually the same, but because and my guess is somehow this lack of haptics is something which makes it even harder than the violin. And now you're showing these strings kind of in the sound forest, and you were also mentioning kind of designing here kind of for different audiences and also somehow catering towards different skill levels, maybe in expression. Is this also a guess you might have that how the haptics kind of interact with the difficulty or the accessibility of these instruments?
Yeah, so when we design interactive installations for museums especially, but also interactive instruments for not only for the museum, but we always think to do it for including any kind of user, any kind of people with different abilities, cognitive abilities, physical abilities, any age. And always starting, as I said at the beginning, also for what are the principles who made an acoustical instrument engaging. No? And yeah, of course, with digital technology, it can help a lot to make these instruments even more inclusive, because if you play the violin before or either you are a student of musical acoustics, you know where you have to put the the bow, which distance from the bridge and the pressure and so on. You made the perfect Schelling diagram kind of pressure. But if you are not an acoustician and not the first to get a good sound from the violin can take a while. While with these digital instruments, you can get always a good sound, but you get also the full experience of an acoustical musical instrument at the same time. So.
Yeah, that's right. So you have somehow when you're learning that instrument, somehow you have to reverse engineer the mapping somehow, right, of that interface. Yeah. So what type of kind of action you have to perform to kind of get to a certain result. Now, of course, with a physical instrument, that's very given by the physical design of that object. But with digital instruments, of course, somehow you are kind of reverse engineering somehow the creator's mapping. And it's interesting also that you say that you change these, so you have different kind of sound designs for your installation.
Yes. So basically, this installation that you have seen is a musical instrument. So it's like we design a grand piano. And all the inputs are available to composers. So the 88 keys on the piano are the strings with the sensors, and then the light. It's RGB white, real-time controllable with the DMX system. But anyway, each string has an Arduino on top of it with the sensors attached to the string, and you can address independently 3 audio channels per string, so they can be played. Basically, we have 3.5 strings. We have 15 audio channels that they can play, and these are available through software in an open system like OSC protocol to composers. So the composer can arrive there with their own software and just get all the inputs and send all the outputs as they want. So it's an open instrument. Yeah, and so we have students from composition every year. They do 1 week of different tests, and then we have every 1 or 2 years we have a composer, professional composer, who is composing a new sound design for the installation. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think we have time maybe for one more question. So maybe a bit more looking into the future. I mean, you were introducing different kinds of AI methods for related to music production, and how do you see kind of how this field is kind of evolving kind of in the next few years? I know it's a hard question, but I'm curious because you're thinking about this for sure a lot.
Of course, yes. So, well, of course we can be sure that something surprising will appear every now and then, and even like more often than before. I just recently saw that Meta again has introduced something new where you can by just asking for some sounds, the system can generate some sounds for you, and yeah, I guess that's where we are going. We can do more and more, and even non-experts can do more and more sound processing or sound synthesis or sound processing, just like that, maybe by typing something or just even just talking to their phone or computer, and so more and more opportunities will be opened quite soon. But of course, I still also think that things that we have had in the past are not going away. This always is, I think, the trend in technology. That so we still have vinyl LPs, and they're actually getting quite popular. Although we used to have the CD player, which was better, and we now have streaming audio, even high quality streaming audio, which is better. Everybody knows that it's better than the vinyl LP, but still, it's quite fun to play these old recordings. And we still have the FM radio. It has been replaced by many things, or at least we thought so, but still it's there. You can still listen to the radio in the car mostly, maybe somewhere else also. And so new things will appear, but old things, maybe their importance will diminish. Okay, the FM radio is not the biggest thing. Maybe 100 years ago it used to be a very big thing. Everybody was listening to the radio all the time. Now very few people are listening to the radio, but it's still there. And I guess the same will happen. So things will change and new things will become important, and some things we now think are very important will diminish and become kind of old and historical. But other than that, it's very hard to predict the future. As we know, usually you are wrong if you guess something.
Roberto, you wanna guess the future?
I don't know. As you know, I was working with neural networks in the late 80s, beginning of the 90s. I think so that there will be. So what someone said, when everything will be done, everything the most by AI, machine learning, and robots, what is left is human beings and how we interact with each other. So. For me, sound design for human beings, it's what is important, and that cannot really replaced by machines and by AI. Of course, we can use it as a tool for coming there, but still, the aesthetics and the way we are done, fortunately, we are all different. so to make something that fits all, it's really hard, especially, for instance, when we design this interface for the museum. It took 6 months to come to the concept. So, and we were many working on that. So I think the development of things for human beings in sound interaction, sound design, there's still a lot to do, and and also to use the importance of establishing sound as a communication channel. Also, there's a lot to do, because usually researchers focus a lot in visualization, graphics, and visuals, but we forget how important is our hearing and the sound design of everything.
Yeah, I think that's also a sentiment I share very much, that in the end it is about human-human interaction, right? So, and somehow these technologies are some ways to communicate better and more diverse, more accessible. So I think we are at the end of this session. So thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you very much for the questions, and thank you also for the online viewers. And I wish you a good rest of the day.
Thank you.